meeting of the Finance Committee to order. And it's live streamed. Yes, I got it. We're live streamed. All right. John and Eddie, you have the floor. Thank you.
Do you want me to take minutes?
That would be wonderful, Terry.
Thank you, Al.
Hey, Ed, do you want to start with the report?
Yes. I'm going to share it because I know there's some questions still out there, so I'll share it right now. I could share this. Can everybody see that?
No.
No. Terry, you have a roll call on the participants in tonight's meeting?
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Kate Canetta,
Present.
Albert Russo,
Here.
Louisa Sakotis Britton,
Here.
and Terry Bezade.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, it's not letting me. For some reason, it's showing that it's sharing here, and I know you guys can't see it. But I'll go through it, page one. So we begin with end of March 31st. 7 of our 10 school months have been completed, which means 66% of our expenses have been used. That is the next tab. You look in the middle, you see the 139,585, 157. That was our budget for fiscal year 22. We expended 92.8 million as of March 31st. We've encumbered, meaning anything from April 1 till June 30th, 46.6 million. The next 2 tabs or bolts are our reserves, which we requested from the city of Danbury for 2.4 million. That is the non-lapse reserve, which is included in 139,585. And the next tab, ESSER 3 carry forward, is the 2.245 million. Teresa, if you remember last meeting in February, you mentioned, or I'm sorry, in March for February's financials, you mentioned about that $141 million that was discussed back on June. That's part of that carry forward money from ESSER 3. So that's why we have that in there now moving forward. Once everything has been accounted for, we ended March 31st with an unencumbered balance of $82,491. I know it was brought up just recently, so there's a good way to get right into it. So if you guys are looking at the budget summary, that last line that shows a lot of zeros or minus numbers is last month we discussed about transfers, leaving them there versus transferring. We did, John, myself, and the team, we numerous hours transferred money from other line items. And there's some that are in the positive. There's only one line item that's in the negative, which is that health insurance line. So if you can go to page
4, 5.
Should be 5, correct. 5, if you go down, probably about 10 lines down, 10 to 12 lines down, you'll see object, health insurance, 52,000 line. And at the all the way to your right, you'll see a minus $872,000. That's the health insurance that we've been watching. We continue to watch. The good news is that part of our reserve request guidelines that meet the guidelines are health insurance. So the plan is that we'll continue to watch this all the way to June, of course. Once we get there, we will be prior to June 30th requesting this from the city to cover this fund if we go in the negative. Right now, as you can see, we have unencumbered balance, which brings us into the positive of $82,000. But as we're all aware, there are numerous things that will happen: spring sports, there's graduation, other stipends that would be done. So we're watching that. So the good news is our bottom line, we're in the positive. The thing is that health insurance is what we're really looking at, because it seems we might have under budgeted for the health insurance for fiscal year 22. The next paragraph or sentence is explaining that we've transferred some of line items into the ESSER that met the ESSER guidelines into ESSER 3. For example, we did not budget for $700,000 in Kelly services. $463,000 was not budgeted for the overages, as we've discussed in the last 2 months. In January, when we had the Omicron virus, we had a lot of absentees, a lot of people out. So there were overages that teachers were taking. So that's why that overages of $463, we were able to move that into an ESSER to cover. And then the last tab is our $293,000 from the CARES Act. CARES Act is our first, some people call it CARES Act, some call it ESSER 1. That's our first relief fund. COVID fund. We went over $293,000, so we moved that to ESSER 3, our one of our other ESSERs. I'll stop there. I know I've dived into a lot of details into this budget and the budget lines. Are there any questions?
Just a quick question, Eddie. Thank you for this overview of what's going on. I just want to make sure that I understand when we're talking about the 66% of our year-to-date budget, we're talking about that 139.
Correct.
Okay, but we're really looking at having spent closer to 141,750, somewhere around there.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
So what we
Okay.
gonna do with the empty lines?
The empty lines those lines are balanced now as of right now.
Oh, they're balanced, okay.
So we transferred, Teresa, if you remember last month, we transferred a lot of the lines, and I know we went from having a lot of negative lines to now the lines are zero, right? So we took anywhere where there was positive numbers and moved them into the negative. So they're called transfers. In other districts prior, we meet, we discuss about it, it's presented, and then it's voted on transferring the funds. In this case, we transferred all the funds due to our discussion back in February.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Right, and we could do that arbitrarily. Because the city gives us the money and they tell us to do what you want with it, is roughly speaking.
Correct.
Everything is in order on how we're spending our grant money. I'm not doubting the practices of my finance folks here. I'm just, I saw a headline in New Haven and I thought I would just ask the question that we are doubly sure that we're good.
Yes, we're doubly sure. Yes, we are, Al. We're watching it on a daily basis, to be honest, and we discuss it 3 or 4 times a day. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to move over to the next, kind of your final sentence, and then I'm going to pass it over to John. It's regarding our Head Start, $214,000. Reason we bring that up is last year it was in our when it was voted on by the Board of Ed, the 214 was voted part of the 137,150. I'm going to turn it over to John to explain a little more. If you guys can go to your last 2 pages of the packet, John will go into that.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome.
So there are two pages. One is from the mayor's budget or the city budget. The other is from our own minutes. I think I've shared this earlier in the year. So from the city point of view, when they say how much money they're going to budget for education, that's not just our Board of Education. It's two organizations, the second being Head Start. So the page you see, they consider that education, and it is. So the page you're looking at that says City of Danbury at the top, you can see that there are two lines. The first one, 136,936,000. And then, so that they intended to give to us. And then 214,000 that they intended to give, and they have directly to the Head Start program. They have for many years. They write the checks. It comes out of their appropriations. Does not come out of the school budget. However, on June 8th, when we set our budget down for this year, if you look over at the motion itself, it says that we set the budget, second line, we set the budget for 21-22 in the amount of 137,150. So we made a mistake. We thought we were getting the whole thing, and we are not. So what that does is it sets up a shortfall if nothing changes between now and June 30th. As you can see from our forecast, we have 82,000. There are some things that still have to come out of that. But if we don't get another 214,000, we won't be able to pay all our bills. So there are a couple of choices that we have. One would be to go back to the city and request what's called an interim appropriation of 214,000, saying we made an error. We plan to spend more, and we would like additional funding, and that would make our budget balance. If it wasn't a second choice, if it wasn't so late in the year, we could have reduced some other plans by 214,000, not done something that we may have already done or planned to do. When you get this late in the year, all our spring activities are underway, all the sports and things like that, and most of the purchases have been made. There are very few places where you might be able to postpone a $214,000 expenditure and do it next year. So that's not a good option late. The other thing would be we could go back and look even more carefully at our budget and see if there is $214,000 that would qualify for ESSER reimbursement and move that over to the ESSER grant. We've not looked at that. I wanted to get a feel from you first, what you think of might ought to happen in a situation like this. And before we discuss it, let me point out, you heard about, for next year, the mayor is proposing adding $4,064,000 to the school budget. So they're coming up from the 136, not from the 137. I just wanted that to be known, and as you hear different numbers bandied about. So thoughts on the different options, strategies, maybe what happened?
Would it be less painful to take it from the grant money, the ESSER funds?
I'd have to say yes, but that means something less that we had planned to do with ESSER either next year or the following year. If you remember, There are two ESSER grants. One is about $11 million, and the plan was to spend half of that this year and half of that next year. And the other ESSER grant was almost $25 million, and the plan was to spend $8 million this year, $8 million next year, and $8 million the third year.
Right.
So
My thought,
both of
John,
those-
was,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, my thought was it might be easier next year. Yeah, it's never easier to shave 214,000, but we can't do it this year. But there's a possibility we could shave something in the 22-23 budget from grant money if we use that money now. Have you got any feeling from the city fathers how they want to go?
I haven't. I didn't think that would be really appropriate till, we heard from you and the full board.
Okay. Those are my thoughts. I have a whole committee here. Terry, Kate?
So, Mr. Russo, I'm sorry, Terry.
Go ahead.
I just respectfully, I'd just like to interject. John talked about two different options. And one of those options he included was going back and finding the appropriate line items in other grants to make this work.
Correct.
So I'm going to say publicly in front of everyone, we have $215,000 eligible in other grants to make this work. There's no need to go to the city to ask for this money at this time.
And I
So,
agree, sir.
yes, we had considerable transition in this office, but it's not the city's fault that we had transition in a finance office and it wasn't clear what about that $215,000 budgeted. It's not necessary to go back to the city to ask for that money.
Okay.
There-
And I
there are
concur with your,
there are eligible lines to find that money in grants to bill that to.
and I concur, sir. Totally. Unequivocally, we are on the same team.
All right. So my apologies about that mix up.
Oh, no worries. No, I'm finding the grant money. I'm good with that.
Okay.
I was just asking the rest of the committee if they had any thoughts on the subject,
Okay.
but I concur with you, sir.
Sorry about the interruption.
It's always good to see you, Kevin.
Good to see you, Mr. Russo.
So I'm
Anyone
going to
else?
go back. Oh, sorry. So I'm all set, Al. That's our report based on March 31st. So we're looking good overall. We'll continue, as you know, watching. I'm glad that us changing those transfers brought questions in a good way. So I'm glad for that. Teresa, thank you for the email today. So now it made sense why you couldn't open or you didn't see I didn't understand the last line. So now you were seeing zero balances where in the past we've seen negative balances. So as mentioned in this meeting, it was transfers that we did throughout the month or the last few weeks. So
And we have thoroughly explained the negative balances in some of the grants.
yep,
Okay.
I will do that right now. Do you guys want to pick one? And I have my little notes. So
Well, if you have notes, start from the top. How's that?
okay. So I'll get the real big ones. So you have some lines, for example, let's see ones that are big in the negative area. Your Alliance District funding carry forward, that was allowed for 1 year or a year and a half, really 2 years, due to COVID. That minus 26 will be coming out. It'll be covered from our Alliance grant that we receive every year. So once the year comes to an end, that'll be gone. Alliance, you can't carry forward due to the pandemic. We were allowed to carry it forward. Your Title III, your bilingual, your immigrant and youth, those grants are grants that continue to use to staff for supplies. Of course, as we're coming fully back, even though we've been fully back for about, say, half of a year at this point, we haven't finished the year out. we'll continue to, hiring staff, anything that is needed for the schools, for the staff, for the students. So those numbers. Your Alliance construction grant, that kind of speaks for itself. That'll stay there. The real extending learning program, you're seeing a negative balance of $1 million. Those are ones that, and there's a few of these, your extended learning, some of the other ones, school readiness, 21st century, parent trust, FRC summer. Those are ones that we have to bill. Once we bill the agencies, we basically put it in the budget and it balances out. But as the expenditures are coming in, we're putting them in. So that's why you're seeing these negative balances in the grants. ESSER 3, as we know, is a 3-year grant. We'll continue to be using that. That's really the grant we're one of the many grants we keep focusing on, just to make sure what we can move, what's eligible per the CARES Act, ESSER grant, etc. Priority School District, that's part of a alliance. So what we've noticed is some individuals are in that grant and they will be moved into alliance. Very similar to what we just did with general fund, will need to be done in grants, but grants are a little different. We can't just move it from one grant to another. Priority school grant, we're allowed to, because it falls under the alliance grant umbrella. Adult ed, very similar to some of the others. We bill them in April, and this month we will put in the budgets for them. We bill the city and state, so that $191,000 and the $247,000 negative balance. Once we bill the city and state and we receive the funds, they'll be put on the budget side and then they'll zero out. See, I'm trying to get the big ones that stand out. Title II, for example, teacher quality, that's for teachers improvement, personal development. That money we can roll over. So the cabinet, myself, the team, we're identifying what those funds are. Once that happens, we draw down from that. And I think that's really, the magnet school is one of the other big ones. That goes together with the magnet school tuition, whatever we receive from surrounding districts with tuition, that goes against the magnet school of grant 130.
What grant number is that, Eddie?
130 and 131.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Sorry, I didn't scroll down.
It's okay. One of the other ones are, say, Coca-Cola. We'll use that one. That's actually so in the vending machines, we get a portion of the funds. It goes into this bucket, which is the Coca-Cola grants, if you want to call it. So that's that 23,000 right there. And then the summer school, very funny, just found out today, is credit card fees. John and I found out today, those are credit card fees that, we receive. So that actually will be going out. There was never a budget for that. There are funds for it. There was just never a budget entered. So we found out about that today. So bottom line is our budgets, our grant budget, breakdown is about $54 million is what we have in grants. That includes the big ones, your ESSERs and your Alliance. Alliance we will continue to get, Title we will continue to get. ESSER is the one that will come to an end come September 2024, which is ESSER 3. And then as of right now, if all the lines align, as I mentioned, we cannot move one grant from another unless it's Alliance or Title, or there's certain ones we can, but we can't do the same thing what we did with general funds. But it brings our grant total down to a positive 179 right now.
All right. Thanks, sure.
You're welcome.
Committee members, any additional questions?
I have one kind of off topic. Do we ever get a list of scholarships, yearly scholarships for the graduating students?
What
is
they're
that-
eligible for?
Or what's available through the high school? Just curious.
Eddie, could I jump in and answer that? The school counselors have access to all the, there's a ton of scholarships available to students. So when they meet and discuss senior planning, as well as walk students through the college recommendation process and help with their Common App through Naviance, scholarships is a component of that. And they do let the students know which scholarships they're eligible for, encouraging them when the due dates are, what the application requirements are. The high school also has some scholarships that they will give out at their senior night closer to graduation.
Is there a list of them that can be shared? Just curious.
I
You know,
think
what's,
they're still in the process of assigning them, but I'm sure we can get them to you.
I mean,
once-
I don't need to know who's getting them. I was just curious, what we have available for our students.
Are you talking about using district funds or just in general things that are available, I guess?
Like they're the, just general funds that, donated to deserving students for books for college. And, there's a kitty for that, that type of thing. I mean, do we have any kind of list like that?
All of that, Teresa, is managed at the high school under the guidance office. It doesn't go through the school budget nor the finance department.
Right,
So
right.
They keep all the records of that.
I can get a list of
Yeah, we
things
can
that
get
have been
that
available.
for last year, for example. We could get that, I'm sure.
Just curious what our students earn. Just curious.
Okay.
I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
John, do we have any other items to discuss tonight?
Well, I think that was it.
Okay, before we sign off, I
Can I-
noticed our
I
chair
ask a-
is here. Madam Chair, do you have anything to add?
No, but I think Kate has a question.
Yeah, may I ask just a quick question? I'm just looking at the ESSER CARES Act funds. And it looks like we have a negative balance on that particular grant. And I just want to make sure I understand.
Kate, are you talking about 2.245?
Sorry, I just had it on my screen, Eddie. I'm looking at
budget.
line 30 under the grants section.
That's 74,000.
Yeah,
So that's in the beginning, I mentioned how that's the CARES Act
Mhm.
slash S1, some people call it. That's really money that in June, or we received, but we spent more than what we received. So we're moving that negative balance into ESSER 3.
okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Very good. Well, John, Eddie, Mr. Walston, I appreciate all your work. I must say that this meeting is going much better than I thought it would when I saw all the empty columns. But that just means, okay, we are on par. I appreciate the explanation about moving grant monies that we can grant from item to item to make it work. And if there are no other questions,
Could I ask a question, please?
Madam Chair, Gladys Cooper, welcome aboard.
I'm
Yes,
not the
ma'am.
chair. Could I ask a question? Could you explain account number 141? Out of my time doing the budget, I've never seen a word just hanging out there or account just hanging out there by itself. Could you explain to me account number 141?
Minority.
The minority grant, Ms. Cooper?
Yeah, is it a grant?
It is a grant, and I honestly don't know too much of the grant. I'm not going to pretend I do.
Okay, I don't want you to pretend.
Yeah, that's what I say. Kevin or Kelly, are you aware of that grant by any chance?
I'm just curious as why is it there? Could it be in with another, some other account? I just want to know what is it. And like I said, I've looked over a lot of budget books over my years, and I just never seen an account just there, and really no sort of explanation. I just want to know what it is.
Mhm.
Well, this is the first time I think we've seen a list of grants, right?
No, we've
Am-
seen grants
correct?
before. Yeah.
We've seen the list of grants before, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
I,
have.
I can look into it, Gladys, for you, and get you an answer tomorrow.
Not just for me, just for,
I understand.
because if we go down in front of City Hall, next week, and we get to looking at this, and, it's not a whole lot of money. I'm just saying, what is it for?
I'll get you that. I'll get the answer for the committee, for everyone tomorrow.
And my last question is there anything new that's going to be proposed out of this budget when we get down to the education committee meeting on next week at City Hall? Is there anything that needs to be corrected now or added to before we get down to City Hall next week?
Gladys, the only thing that I think is different is, for the first time in the last 3 years, we will not be returning unspent monies to the city come June 30th. You can see from the projections. I'm not sure if they expect that annually, but not this year. So, and I think that comes through on the report.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We'll see you all at the next meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
moved.
Russo.
So moved, gentlemen.